Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Shakti with Jack Jennings. We've just decided that this very few seconds ago.
That was the executive decision.
So you know, you will have seen Jack on my channel, hopefully, if I get the videos out in the right order. So I really have wanted to talk about Shakti, and I'm going to go deeper into Shakti, you know, because as we know, there's a big interest in John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra on this channel.
Yeah.
But you being such an expert in Indian classical music and I'm such a big fan, I thought, well, I should do it when you're here. So shall we delve right in?
Yeah.
I've got 5 of, I think there's 6 albums, not counting where they've appeared on Montreux box sets and all that. So
Okay.
I haven't got all the albums there, but we'll talk about the albums I have got. So I'm going to pull up the very first album, which is called Shakti with John McLaughlin. There it is. I'll hold it up right there. He is.
Yeah.
And here, there's the back cover, you can see. So this came out around about 76, isn't it? So it's recorded 75, and I think it would have come out, 1976. So what's your opinion about this one?
Well, it's like got that big bang, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, it's suddenly like, whoa, okay, here we are. And it's actually some of the most sort of raucous Shakti music, isn't it? It feels so fresh, and you can hear the reaction from the audience that is on there as well, that the audience are, it really sounds exciting. And the way that Joy kicks off as well, it's such a monster.
That head,
composition,
you know, the
head.
tune, or the head as I would call it, is insane.
It's the most insane Shakti piece in terms of just like the pre-composed parts. It's really like heavyweight stuff. It's super hard to play, and the physicality of John on that guitar takes so much energy to play the guitar like that, but you almost feel that the guitar can't quite take John.
No,
you know,
I know.
Like he's so overpowering.
Like he's playing so hard that the whole thing's just going to crumble in his hands. Yeah,
it's like he's going to destroy the guitar because he's just playing it.
Let's have a look at this. There's a good picture of him with the Shakti guitar.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that would have been interesting to anyone buying this album to see. Oh, it's on acoustic, and he's got this big bizarre. I mean, that's a big guitar as well, isn't it? It's huge volume coming out of that, isn't there?
I can sort of geek out a little bit on that guitar if you want.
Go on then.
So basically, John was learning Veena. John is trained more in Carnatic South Indian music, and Shakti is more Carnatic than it is Hindustani. It's more based on South Indian music than North Indian. So he was studying the Veena, which is a bit like the sitar, but South Indian, and it has these big sort of arched frets. It's
like
not
a scallop neck.
Yeah, it's like a huge scalloped neck.
Yeah.
It's not like the sitar where the frets are kind of tied on and they're kind of like bridges over the neck.
Yeah.
They're carved away. So he would have been learning this technique of like pulling the string downwards to do the string bends, and that's what he's doing on that guitar. He had the scallop so he could do that. He had incredibly light gauge strings, which is very unusual. It doesn't sound like that, but he had the guitar, I think, crafted in a way that could do that. And I had a great friend of mine make a guitar that could also take light gauge strings, an acoustic guitar, and still have that big sound. So he's got like a plain G string on there, which is a really, really different tone. And he's got the cross strings, which are tuned down low. They give some sympathetic resonance, but they're more for, so he kind of strums on them and kind of drones on them.
Yeah.
But he's playing just very, very visceral and really, really strong picking.
If you're watching this because you want to know which Shakti album to get, I've thought about this a lot. I did a top 10 John McLaughlin albums on Sea of Tranquility, and to be honest, if his solo albums, taking the Mahavishnu out, I would have put these 3 at the top. I think these are 3 of his greatest albums. And I can't really differentiate between each album because each album's completely different. This one is the brutal.
Yeah, that's the brutal.
Speed, fast, like
live.
It's the thrash metal of Shakti.
Yeah.
And the only problem I ever had with this, I felt that the live recording was slightly muddy and a bit reverby.
It is a bit. You have to kind of it's endearing and it's very raw, but it's like you're listening to sort of like a live demo or something like that. But so you've got to check it out. But
yeah, I mean this one for me, I think it's got very dusty. I think when I was younger, this was my favourite one. It isn't anymore. I love them all equally. But this is the second Shakti album, which I think came in '77. Handful of Beauty. You can see the scallop neck there.
This is a really beautiful album.
Yeah.
So this is done in the studio, obviously, and it's played with much more balance. But also in the original Shakti, that live album, they had tabla, but they also had
is it Gatam?
Gatam, or no, actually Gatam's on this with Viku Vinayakram. But before that, on the live album, they've got Madringam or Madunga. They've got another kind of two-headed drum.
Yeah, so they've got that here as well. He's playing the same thing, but
he's not on the first album though. They've got a different.
Oh, it's a different. You're right.
He's on the picture, I think, but
no.
But it's a different musician. He was one of the musician who played with McLaughlin's Guru.
Yeah, so they put he's on this album, but it's not actually. And I read that you are right.
He's on the back. So that's another thing about the live album. You've got two Indian drums that are both kind of have a similar sound to the tabla. So it's not quite as crisp and refined. Whereas on this they have the gatam, which is like a clay pot. And that's the Shakti sound that I think we know. The way that he plays on the clay pot, that really cuts.
Trebly.
Yeah, that's trebly. It really cuts
sound
through. And Zakir, the tabla player, he's actually, as a younger guy, he's kind of dipping more into the Carnatic tradition and learning a lot of the different korvais, they're called, all the different rhythmic patterns that Viku. Actually, I think that he laid more of the foundation, and that Zakir kind of slotted into that, because El Shankar on violin is also Carnatic. John McLaughlin's Carnatic. So in a way, Zakir is the only purely North Indian musician. So Zakir kind of slotted into that, and the Carnatic sound is much more kind of crisp and cutting with the rhythms, that kind of staccato.
I think the thing in the West is we think John McLaughlin's gone and worked with his Indian classical musicians, and he's done this fusion. But actually, these are remarkable musicians that are also been able to come from their end over. And Zakir is saying, play more Carnatic. That's an incredible breadth of ability, isn't it, that he can do that, and we don't realise it's in the West. We just think it's all Indian classical music, but they're actually throwing it all around. And I think El Shankar's astonishing for his breadth. He's not just a great Indian classical violinist, he's able on top of that to take on. I mean, in the end, working with Frank Zappa, Peter Gabriel, these are incredible musicians, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, El Shankar said, because he was in New York, I think it was New York, when he met John McLaughlin, and he said that other musicians that he played with at that time, he had to play more in their way, because the other musicians in that scene in America, they didn't understand Indian music, so he had to kind of adapt to them. So he was used to kind of doing that, but when he met John McLaughlin could he understood the Indian music, so they could work together. So El Shankar had a really amazing ability to play, in that beautiful combination with the guitar, and play over the chords that John McLaughlin was playing. But they could really think as one. They were quite incredible.
This one, for me, it's even though it's in the studio, they are really stretching out, aren't they? And some of the tunes are like sort of 15-20 minutes long. It's not quite as fiery as the first album, but they still really go for it. Yeah,
that one more than the next one, actually. This one's still very expansive. Very long solos that you feel like they're really off the cuff and all over the place.
And that acoustic guitar opening to India. You know, when he's just unaccompanied, and I've often said to you, he doesn't actually, when he's exploring Indian music elsewhere, he's not actually doing all the microtonic bends so much, but on that he does, doesn't he? He really starts to explore the possibilities of bending on this instrument.
He's more in a sort of he's closer to a traditional sense of Indian music on this. Later on, I feel like he parted ways with that a little bit. But it got to a point where he was playing Vina and guitar, and then he decided that he couldn't do that anymore, and he couldn't do Vina, he could only do guitar. So I feel like he stepped away a little bit from. He didn't keep on chasing that goal more and more and more. I feel like he got somewhere with that, and then he decided to kind of lock down into his own style.
Yeah.
But you can hear that on there. He's much more thinking about the traditional vocal style of Indian music.
And so we'll move on to the third original Shakti album, which is Natural Elements. This one here.
Yeah.
This one again is unlike the other two, isn't it?
Yeah.
And,
this is my favourite.
Yeah, I think this has become my favourite now I'm older.
I mean, I heard this one. I think I heard it first. But it's just too perfect. It's just unbelievable. It's got the freshness and spontaneity and amazing playing, but it's just like God-given music. I mean, every note on there is just unbelievably sublime. I mean,
and I think this one's also the most accessible as well.
Yeah.
It's as though the label after him selling millions of albums with the Mavish Junction, I think we're disappointed with him doing this.
Yeah.
And so I think he's moved somewhat to try and make something which is, it's quite hooky, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's actually improved because of that. And I think also it's, so you've got lots of short songs. There's lots of short songs, but they do still open up, don't they? There's a couple of tracks. I mean, the Daffodil and the Eagle and Get Down and Shruti, they really play on that.
Absolutely.
Further out than they do on any other albums, I think. Especially Get Down and Shruti, the percussions, the guitar and percussion interlinked thing. To this day, I don't know how they can possibly do that.
Well, it's all timing cycles, you know.
But they just go on for hours, don't they? These are just going on for hours. It's
well, that's the beauty of it. It's cyclical. I mean, I've got friends who are into Shakti, and they would say, you know, I just don't know how they do that thing where it's all silent, and then they suddenly just cut straight into like a fast interlocking passage that just ends perfectly. And I said, well, it's because they're using cycles. They're counting cycles. And they know when they get to, you know, beat 13 of a 17 beat cycle or whatever it is, they know to come in. And my friends looked a bit sort of like demystified, or like they didn't actually like the fact that I told them what it was. They're like, oh, is that what you know? And it's like, well, but this is the thing, guys. It's they're counting in cycles. It's all very logical, but when it comes across and it's played like that, it's pure magic. But you're right, the Daffodil and the Eagle, there's all the coming and going where they're doing call and response. But when you listen to that, every time this is another thing that I noticed with the kind of classical fusion blend, is that McLaughlin's soloing and then El Shankar solos, and it's backwards and forwards. Whenever El Shankar comes in, him and the Gatam are like exactly playing the same thing, and they end with the exact same rhythms, and McLaughlin's playing, and it's totally amazing, but it's not locked in like in the microscopic sort of way.
It's not there's the bit that's the length we're going to solo in, and his is is exactly in that space.
It's exactly in that space, but the percussionists are actually like linking exactly what he's playing, almost like it's pre-composed. But it's not that it's pre-composed, it's just that Indian, especially South Indian music, is actually very conservative in a sense, that they can go into rhythm, like long passages of rhythm, and they can stick to an exact formula, and that's considered like excellent.
Well, the thing is that we think we don't have this, but we do, because we have it in the blues. If someone's playing and they go, and everyone's going to go, everyone's going to do that.
We've got that.
It's a similar thing. So
it's just embedded into at a lightning speed. They've got things that everyone knows because they're traditional, but they're crazy lightning speed things that we would think those are just like, you can only do that in the moment. So it's hard to know at times what is improvised and what's pre-composed. Because it's all just happening at that exalted, passionate.
I've got some on it, but you are filling in the gaps, you know, because I think it's the mixture of actually pre-composed stuff that they know they're going to play and use, and then somebody recognising a rhythmical phrase.
I know that one.
I know that one. You're doing that, and then they'll be able to join up with that, and then improvising also in a Western way where you're actually happy accidents, or you happen to, all that with Shakti you sort of get bamboozled, like what is going on. So I haven't got all the stuff. I'm just a little bit of a brief chat about remembering Shakti. Or Remember Shakti now, Remember Shakti, the album. So I've brought out 2 albums here. I think this is the first one, which was just called Remember Shakti. There it is. This was recorded live.
Yeah, with Hari Prasad Chirezia.
Yeah, and I think which one is it? Yes, the track's taken from Friday the 26th of September 1997. I was at that gig.
Oh,
so
you were?
I am on this album clapping, and that you're impressed by that.
I am very impressed because I listened to that a lot.
And I think there's 3 basic albums, and then they've released stuff on box sets and stuff.
Okay.
There's this one, The Believer. So should we just go through the line? This one's you're maybe better at pronouncing.
Okay, so we've got the 3 of the founding members, John McLaughlin, Zakir Hussain, and Viku Vinayakram. Viku was getting a bit old by this point, and this is the last album that he's on. And then they had special guest Hari Prasad Chirezia because they could not find El Shankar.
They actually couldn't find
him. They couldn't find him. It turned he was off.
But this is a legendary Indian classical musician, one of the most legendary.
Hari Prasad Chirezia he made the bamboo flute a fully accepted classical instrument. He fully developed that in the classical field. And it wasn't traditionally used so much in that pure traditional classical field. So he's incredibly important.
Can I tell you a funny story? When I saw this gig, and I don't know if it's on here, I doubt it is Hari Prasad opened the gig up. So he just walks out on his own, he sits down, and the tambour starts up and the drones are going. And he's just sat there, and he's closing his eyes. You can tell he's really getting into a space. And we just sat there, and he's sat there, symphony hall, like 2,000 people. He's sat there like this, and then at some point his hand goes down to the flute, and he grabs the flute and he puts it, and as he blows it, he's picked up the wrong flute.
Oh, really?
and then he just burst out laughing. And he was laughing, going, "Oh no, I've got the wrong flute," and then put it down.
He's a funny guy. He's got a good sense of humour as well. Yeah. He used to be a wrestler when he was a young man. He was a wrestler. Yeah.
The sound of his flute in the room, it sounded like he got wind chimes in it. When you're in the gig and he blew it, the sound was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like he's like that peaceful warrior. Almost like when you hear about him being a wrestler, it's like, that guy's like, he's fully like, he's a warrior. But
and if you like this album,
on the flute,
you need to check out Making Music, the ECM album that he did. That's an incredible album.
Yeah, have Prasad's on that too.
So this album is called The Believer, and this was pretty cool because it came with a DVD as well. So it's actually like 2 albums.
Yeah.
Do you want to just say who's on this, because we've got a really classic musician here, haven't we?
So on this album, as I said before, Viku Vinayakram was getting a little bit old for the touring. I think he's still around actually, but his son was coming of age, and it seemed like it was the right thing for his son to come on board. So Selvaganesh, V. Selvaganesh. A lot of these South Indian names are so incredibly long.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting you to read them.
V. Selvaganesh or U. Srinivas. So Selvaganesh is playing. He does play some gatam, but he plays a lot of kanjira, which is like this very small drum, which you kind of hold in one hand and play it, and then you can kind of push the skin in and out. It's actually got an incredibly bassy sound to it, so he's incredible. And then Hari Prasad Chirezia couldn't really, he's such a big artist in his own right that he couldn't really join the band. He's too busy doing his own thing. But they found, they'd known for a long time about this boy wonder, this child prodigy, U. Srinivas, playing the mandolin, electric mandolin. So they got him on board, and I can tell you one or two stories about that, because a guy who I've been collaborating with, was a disciple of Srinivas, and he only learned from Srinivas, and he plays mandolin just like Srinivas. And he said that when Srinivas turned up to the first rehearsal, he didn't have a notebook. He didn't have anything. He didn't have anything to record. And John McLaughlin was a bit like, well, what's going on? It's like, I've got loads of tunes to teach you here. Have you not got any notes? Have you haven't got anything to record? And Srinivas just said, oh, it's okay, don't worry. So John played to him, and Srinivas just sat and listened to everything. And then he just picked up his mandolin, and he just played, and he had it, and he just remembered everything, and that was it.
And Srinivas died, didn't he? Died quite...
he died quite young, several years ago.
Yeah.
So that really put a stop to the Remember Shakti, because they were incredible together, and that was really their the band that settled and that became like a real core family.
Yeah.
And then they also had a vocalist that joined as well, Shankar Mahadevan. He's a really big singer in India.
McLaughlin's gone on to work with.
Yeah, he's done all kinds of things with him. So
is he on the Bombay album, the live at
I think
Bombay?
he is. Yeah, I think on that album they also had guest performances from lots of other musicians.
I mean, it's worth saying, if you want to know the difference between Shakti and Remember Shakti, it's a lot more sprawling, isn't it? There's a lot more people involved. I mean, some of the improvisations are incredible. I think on the first album,
and
one of the tracks is an hour long on that, which is quite incredible.
And John's playing electric, and also the electric mandolin is a different sound from the. I mean, he's still Carnatic, so there's still the South Indian kind of foundation, but you've got electric mandolin and electric guitar rather than acoustic guitar and violin. So the texture's very different. It's a much more sort of modern.
I've got to be honest, I'm not as keen on it as the original Shakti.
It doesn't grab me as much. I did see Remember Shakti, and it was unbelievable. It was like the best concert I've ever seen. It was incredible. But John on the acoustic guitar, I mean, that acoustic guitar, I don't think he ever played quite like that again on any other instrument. I think he had a tenderness, he had a connection with that guitar. I mean, he actually had about 2 of those that were made with different modifications. But he had a way of playing on that guitar that was incredibly warm and intimate and also visceral. And that guitar got destroyed somehow. He lent it to someone.
John's guitars always seems to happen,
like the double rainbow guitar that got smashed, and beautiful guitars that just didn't live on. So that was it had its time. I mean, Remember Shakti, you've got to hear it. And I mean, there's moments on this album with Hari Prasad.
That's the one to go for.
Lotus
I would say.
and
first.
Yeah, Zakir is a beautiful composition on there named after Zakir Hussain. So there's incredible music, but there's something about the violin and the acoustic guitar that that's just perfect. For me, that rivals the Mahavishnu orchestra, and in a way, sometimes it's even better.
I think if you step back and look at an artistic statement, Natural Elements could well be John's greatest album. If you step back and think of everything he tried to achieve in music and what he's done and where he went, I think that was an absolute artistic peak. Anyway, I'm going to thank Jack for coming and doing this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.